Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a deeply frustrating and honestly incredibly common psychological phenomenon. It's something pretty much all of us have witnessed, and maybe you've even experienced it firsthand. Have you ever watched a totally unfair situation unfold right in front of you, like a clear case of betrayal or wrongdoing, and realized that the crowd around you was just completely missing the point? We're talking about the blindness of bystanders and why society so often literally ignores the real victims of an injustice. It's a fascinating quirk of human behavior, and by understanding it, we can actually change how we process the world around us. So get comfortable because we're breaking this whole shebang down step by step today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Why do bystanders ignore the victim? It totally defies logic, right? You'd think that human empathy would automatically gravitate toward the person who's getting hurt. But in reality, observers routinely focus all their attention on the exciting or dramatic interactions taking place rather than on the silent person bearing the brunt of the harm. People are absolutely captivated by the drama. They want to watch the sparks fly, even if those sparks are burning someone else's house down. To really grasp this, we're going to look at a highly specific everyday case study that perfectly illustrates this dynamic.
Section 1. The supermarket scenario. Let's ground this complex psychology in a setting we all know.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how clearly it maps out the three players in this dynamic. Imagine this. A married couple is shopping together in a supermarket. Right there in the aisles, the husband is actively pursuing another woman. We've got three specific roles here. First, the husband. He's actively betraying his wife's trust in a brazen way. Second, the other woman. She knows he's married, yet she chooses to participate, which definitely complicates the dynamic. And finally, you have the wife. She's the person most directly harmed by this betrayal, even though she might be looking at cereal boxes just one aisle over and have absolutely no idea what's happening. When you look at it mapped out like this, the situation is glaringly obvious, right? The wife is the one being wronged here. But as we're about to see, the audience, the bystanders in the supermarket and in society at large, don't always see it that way.
Section 2. Unfair bystander reactions. Let's look at how the onlookers actually respond to this clear situation.
You'd expect empathy for the injured person for sure, but the source material highlights that human reactions are incredibly messy. Instead of feeling for the wife, bystanders often do one of four things. First, they romanticize the encounter. They see the secret glances and frame it like some Hollywood movie. Second, they blame the wife without a shred of evidence. You'll hear murmurs like, well, she must be ignoring him at home. Third, they treat the husband's behavior as normal, writing it off as, boys will be boys. And fourth, they focus entirely on the other woman's perspective instead of the spouse's. They center the narrative around the excitement of the affair. For the person being wronged, this collective reaction can be incredibly isolating. It creates this overwhelming feeling that literally nobody cares about the harm being done to them.
And out of all those reactions, this phrase is the one that really sticks out. They had chemistry. By using this simple phrase, bystanders completely rewrite the mechanics of the situation. They take an act of dishonesty and betrayal, and they dress it up in the costume of romance and destiny. It is a subtle but absolutely powerful way of invalidating the victim's pain. When bystanders say they had chemistry, what they're really saying is that the excitement of the betrayers takes precedence over the dignity of the betrayed.
But let's pause for a second because I don't want you to lose all faith in humanity just yet. It isn't completely accurate to say that everyone automatically supports the wrongdoers. We essentially have two camps. On one side, we have the indifferent bystanders, the ones romanticizing the drama and victim blaming. But on the other side, we have critical bystanders. There are many people who look at that supermarket scenario and instantly recognize the husband's behavior for exactly what it is, dishonest and disrespectful toward his wife. These critical bystanders would rightly criticize the husband, and they'd also point out the active participation of the other woman. So empathy isn't dead, it's just unevenly distributed. Which brings us to a massive question: why? Why are human beings so wildly inconsistent in whose feelings they prioritize?
Section 3. The empathy disconnect. Let's explore the psychological mechanics behind this bystander blindness.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because this behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a precise psychological domino effect. The broader truth is that bystanders almost never have the full context. So what does the human brain do? It takes shortcuts. Step 1. They lack all the facts, so they try to fill in the blanks. Step 2. They naturally identify with the more charismatic person. If the husband is charming and the other woman is captivating, the brain just kind of gives them a pass. It's the halo effect in action. And step 3. This is a huge one. People tend to believe the louder storyteller, or whoever manages to tell their side of the story first. The person who is actually wronged is often silent. either because they don't know they've been wronged yet, or because they're in shock. And in the court of public opinion, silence is entirely overshadowed by whoever is controlling the narrative.
Beyond just a supermarket drama, this expands to why people remain indifferent to unfair treatment in almost every aspect of life. Indifference usually rests on 4 distinct pillars. First, social biases. We have these deeply ingrained assumptions about relationships, gender, and faults that completely cloud our judgment. Second, self-interest. Let's be honest, it is emotionally taxing to step up and defend someone. It's much easier to just watch the show. Third, incomplete information, which we just touched on. And fourth, a fundamental lack of personal investment. Most people simply aren't invested enough in a stranger's well-being to intervene or even to bother forming a nuanced opinion. They see the mess, shrug, and move on with their day, leaving the victim entirely unsupported.
Section 4. Public opinion versus truth. Let's zoom out now and look at the bigger picture of what this means for us in society.
And this brilliantly illustrates one validating truth we have to take away from this phenomenon. The injustice is still real, even if people are indifferent. If you're ever the victim of unfair treatment, and the crowd sides with the person who hurt you or just shrugs their shoulders, man, it can make you feel like you are losing your mind. It makes you question reality. But the phenomenon of bystander blindness proves that the crowd's reaction has nothing to do with the facts of the harm. A betrayal is a betrayal. Disrespect is disrespect. The indifference of the people around you doesn't erase the reality of what you experienced.
So the crucial point is that public opinion is rarely a reliable measure of what is right. We're raised to believe that the majority rules, that if a whole room of people thinks something is okay, it must be okay. But the psychology we've unpacked today completely dismantles that idea. Public opinion is easily swayed by charisma, by volume, by who speaks first, and honestly, by the lazy desire to be entertained rather than to do the hard work of empathy. The reality of a situation isn't a popularity contest. Just because the crowd is cheering for the wrongdoer doesn't mean the wrongdoer is right.
That brings us to our final thought for today. When have you seen public opinion get it wrong? Think about your own life, your workplace, your friend groups, or even massive pop culture events. When have you watched the bystanders totally miss the point and ignore the person who was actually getting hurt? By recognizing this flaw in human behavior, we can train ourselves to be better. We can choose to be the critical bystanders. We can look past the loud, charismatic storyteller, seek out the silent victim, and acknowledge the truth. Thank you so much for joining me today for this deep dive. Keep questioning the consensus, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next explainer.